Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome to the start of another weekly reading vlog, except for this time around, rather than doing books picked by my TBR jars, instead I had both of my best friends pick books for me, and I'm very excited to get into each of these. So starting out, we have The Holiday Trap by Rowan Parrish. This one was picked for me by Kat, and it sounds like it is a queer version of that movie The Holiday with Jack Black and Jude Law, where basically two people end up swapping places. One goes to New England and the other goes to New Orleans, and while the opposite person is living there, they end up falling for somebody in that town. Kat did warn me that this is a holiday setting, but she also mentioned that it's not at the forefront of the story, which is good because I'm reading it in August. However, I have just come off reading multiple horror books, and so I'm really in the mood for some romance. Of course, I'm definitely excited for this one. It's also shockingly chunky for a romance book, so I'm very intrigued to see what else is going on apart from just the romance plots. Here's hoping I'll like this one. On the opposite side, Allie ended up grabbing for me Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This has been everywhere lately. I think I've only maybe heard like one negative review, and even then it was like, it was fine, it just wasn't really for me. This has been sold out everywhere. Thank God Allie gave me her book of the month version because she ended up getting one of the special editions. I think this is like a historical based fantasy story in which we are following a woman who becomes a war correspondent during the time of a war between these two gods. I think she starts writing letters to her brother who is on the front lines utilizing this magic typewriter, but rather than going to her brother, the letters end up going to her work rival, I guess. And from there, obviously, there's gonna be some sort of a romance. I know this is gonna be a duology. Like I mentioned, I've heard nothing but positive things about it. I'm pretty excited going in. This is definitely gonna be the one I'm gonna start with. There's been so much hype, and I've been really excited to get to this because of all the hype. Plus the writing style just seems like it's gonna be very beautiful and lush and gorgeous, and that's really up my alley. The irony in having my best friends pick books for me is that it is very rare all of our tastes align. Romance stories are more likely for that to happen, but even then it's pretty rare. I think the only ones I can truly say that happens with are like Emily Henry and Red, White, and Royal Blue. Allie and I do sometimes have fantasy books we both absolutely love, but also more rare. We just tend to have things in fantasy stories that we feel differently about. The romance one, if Kat loves it, there is a pretty strong chance I will enjoy it as well. Just not a guarantee that I will love it as much. So we'll see. I'm very hopeful I will enjoy both of these. I really want to have a good reading week. Before we even get into those, guess what? I have already finished a book this week. I was reading Artificial Condition by Martha Wells, which is the second book in the Murderbot Diaries. I picked this up on a whim. I knew on Saturday I was gonna be driving a lot, so I was like, I could probably knock out majority of this book today. And I did. I literally listened to like maybe 30 minutes of it this morning. Once again, I really adored Murderbot. I also really enjoyed a new AI character we met named Art. There was some exploration of what is clearly going to be a longer plot going throughout the series, and I am intrigued by that, but it did take a little bit of time to get there. It also seems that these teams Murderbot keeps helping with are going to be temporary, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they end up returning later on in the series. Lots of casual queerness. I think Wells has created a very enveloping sci-fi world. It's really convincing. I don't remember what it was, but there's like an element of logic that she mentioned, and it's like, you know, I didn't think about it, but like that makes perfect sense for this setting. Enjoyed getting to continue this series, and I am very excited to do so again. Obviously, I own both of these, and I am planning to annotate both of them, so that means I have to read them physically. But I have to have an audiobook going, so I had no idea what I was in the mood for audio-wise, which is why I left that up to my Instagram followers. I have a poll running right now. We'll see tomorrow which one of those end up winning. I will probably decide that based on whatever has the highest amount of votes whenever I take Faith for a walk in the morning. This is actually starting right after the full moon readathon wrapped up, and I spent all of yesterday reading a book physically, which means I need to read a manga. Separate those. That's my new thing I'm trying to do to ensure I'm continuing reading my manga. Unfortunately, I'm on a book buying ban, so I cannot go buy the next round of Soul Eater, but I do have the first 2 volumes of Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo, and I'm very excited to start into this. I've rewatched the anime multiple times now, and I adore it. It is so comforting, it is so wholesome, it is so sweet. I love it. It's ridiculous in the best possible way, and so I really want to try the manga, see what's different, see what's alike. I just know one way or another it's gonna give me happy, wholesome feels. I shouldn't be starting another series, but I'm gonna do it. That's really it for now. I mostly am just gonna be laying around tonight, focusing on reading. Oh no, I am gonna FaceTime with my friends for a little bit. Forgot about that. I just was too wiped last night to update after I got back from my brother's. But seeing as I've already finished 2 books this morning, I realized I should probably update y'all. So hello, good morning. I ended up starting into the 3rd Murderbot book yesterday. That was what was winning the poll. So I started into that one. It continues following Murderbot as they are attempting to figure out some of their history. There's a portion of their memory that has been erased and they're trying to figure out why that is. It seems as though we have discovered a big bad evil corporation, which perhaps will be the villain for the rest of the series, I'm assuming. As per normal, adore Murderbot's character. They're just such a freaking mood. They're so hilarious. Actually kind of become a little bit more humanized now. And I think a big part of that is because they have been able to be on their own for so much longer and they're actually being treated as, let's not say a human being, but like a fully sentient being. I really like that. Plus there's more discussions around like the difference of how the society treats humans, augmented humans, bots, and sec units, which is what Murderbot is. Because they are sort of more humanoid than a bot, but they are still realized to be not completely human. They are not treated as human beings. We had another background robot sidekick that we were able to meet this time around. Their name was Mickey. Right from the get-go, I liked Mickey. I still maintain that Wells gives us too many side characters in the story because there's just a lot of names that get thrown at you all of a sudden and it's hard to keep them all straight. The first book, I think there were like 6 side characters that we had to keep straight. The second, there was really only 3, which was a lot better. This one, we jumped back up to like 6 or 7. I cannot talk and do my eyeliner at the same time, so give me a sec. Rounded back to too many characters. However, I think we have hit the point where some of the characters we met in the previous books are going to start returning in the next one, and I am excited about that. I also just love how Murderbot continues to comment on certain ways they are becoming a little bit more human, and inherently they do not like that, which is absolutely hilarious. On top of that one, I also ended up finishing my arc that I was in the middle of. The video for that should already be posted, so I'll put a link to it in the cards, but I finished reading The Blonde Identity by Ellie Carter this morning. Faith just woke me up super early and it was not time for walkies yet, but I did not think I was going to be able to fall back asleep, so I decided to finish out reading that. All in all, I did really enjoy this. It's absolutely ridiculous. It is super hilarious. From the get-go, I knew exactly what this book was. There was a little bit of a surprise twist that I did not anticipate. The romance was very adorable. However, I was getting a little too cheesed out there at the end. Like, I was starting to roll my eyes and gag over some of the lines that are being dropped. Too big of words and too big of a declaration for y'all having known each other for tops a week. I did start into Divine Rivals yesterday. I'm not too far. I think I'm maybe like 60 pages in. Already enjoying it, already intrigued. The world building is pretty cool. I wasn't expecting this to have such a fantastical element apart from like the typewriter bits. I knew that the war was based around gods. We're actually getting a fair amount of world building into the gods, and so that's pretty cool. We've learned like the mythology of this world. There are magical buildings, which is pretty awesome. Apart from that though, I
I went and got my hair done yesterday. Fresh color, and then I also took off about 1.5 inches. This is probably gonna be the shortest I'll go for a while, and then I'm gonna let it grow out for a little bit, I think. But that's as it gets colder. If I go see her in the next month and it's still pretty hot, I might have her chop it back to this, because I actually really like this length. This is working for me. It's fun. It's a long bob. Speaking of bob, I went to my brother's last night as well. Ended up starting into My Hero Academia because I've never seen it. We weren't really sure. We were just kind of flipping around. I'm intrigued so far. It gives me very similar vibes to the webtoon, soon to be graphic novel, Unordinary, but also sort of like X-Men universe as well. The main character cries way too much. But I do like the art style. The art style is pretty cool. I think we hit like episode 5, so the main character has just taken the test in order to get into the school, the superhero school. I guess it also reminds me of 𝗖cie High. There's a lot of like superhero media that I've consumed that this reminds me of. Hey guys, so it's Wednesday night. Yeah, I updated y'all earlier, but I have done a fair amount of reading. I already finished 2 books today, meaning I felt so accomplished and just wanted to continue on that train. So after work, I finished some filming and then I dove back into Divine Rivals, and I'm just adoring this. It's so good. Already, I have a fair amount of tabs. I actually had to go through and kind of redo my tabbing system because I thought one element, which was very prevalent in the beginning, was going to stay that way, and it did not. And then there was another one that was just starting up that I knew was gonna have a lot. And so I was like, I need to flip these tab colors. Okay, so we have our main character, Roman, and then we have our other main character, Iris. They come from different sides of the tracks. They're competing for the same job. So right out of the get-go, they're just definitely playing up that rivals element. There's so much banter. They just pick at each other. It's also very interesting because they're aware that the other person is a talented writer. Even though they're constantly mocking each other, they also respect each other's writing ability. Then we have the war element, which is becoming stronger and stronger as I continue, namely because Iris is actually a war correspondent now. She is not technically at the front, but she is in a town that is closer to it. A lot more obvious how this war is impacting them. I definitely feel like now the historical elements are coming to the forefront. Definitely reminiscent to like World War I novel in that regard. The writing in these letters is just so deeply personal. It's starting to skirt the line slightly into flirting. Even still, they're just talking to each other, no holds barred. And it's so refreshing, so honest and truthful already because of the circumstances they're both living with. They're diving into hard topics very early on. Roman still hasn't admitted he is who he is. At least he's aware of the fact that he's kind of a coward for doing that, but he wants to be able to tell her face to face, which just tells me that that element of tension is going to continue. And I both dread it and love it. That was really dramatic. I apologize. I'm a little tired. I've been laying out on the couch going back and forth between reading and editing while watching some reading sprints on 𝗖cie Reads channel. Actually, I'm filming this so I can officially pause and go get ready for bed and hopefully pass out here soon because I'm wiped. I don't know why I feel so tired all of a sudden. I did download the audiobook for The Holiday Trap from my library, so chances are I'll probably start that tomorrow morning when I'm walking Faith. Hey y'all, happy Thursday. I am so wiped out right now. I don't know why. I'm just exhausted. Have been for most of the day. It's been pretty chill work-wise, thankfully. I came home, I got changed, I sat down on my couch, and I don't want to move. I have gotten a lot of reading done. Currently at probably about 2/3 of the way through Divine Rivals and adoring it. It is so freaking good. Look at all these tabs. Look at all of them. I once again had to redo my coloring system because specifically this purple color, I just don't have a lot of these, but I want to utilize them because it fits perfectly with the irises on the cover. The letters are just so filled with emotion. They are so raw, they are so honest. Every single one of them, I think I have a moment within them where I realize, wow, that was fantastically said. I must have it. Without getting into specifics, Roman and Iris are once again like seeing each other in person, and so banter has started back up. Their relationship has improved from when they were rivals. There's still this underlying tension between them, but because of the circumstances they're in, they're also so much more protective of one another and trying to ensure that the other person survives. I'm all over it. It has my heart in a vice. Those scenes have had me squealing. Hello, baby girl. So stinking good. And I love the world building. I have to say, it's not at the forefront of the story, but I really have enjoyed the world building we've seen, and I want more of it. It's very reminiscent of a Greek pantheon, but it's not quite that many. I am all over that. Also, on that note, I recently learned that apparently there is a discourse around the difference between fantasy romance and romantasy. I did not know this was a thing. Now, after having heard the definitions of each of these, I realize I like fantasy romance, not romantasy. I think that makes sense. Even so, I'm still super picky about it. I don't know. I wanted to share this revelation with y'all. Yeah, this is going fantastically. Like I said, I'm like really mentally wiped right now. I don't know why. I'm just so tired. I actually think I might leave this be for the night because I don't think I have the mental capacity to truly pay full attention to this story like it deserves. Rather, I'm gonna continue reading into The Holiday Trap, which I started this morning. Already have a few tabs. Can say Rowan Parrish's writing, very funny. We have Greta, who is from Maine. Her family is just so overwhelming. They're weirdly codependent, and it's a very big family. Unfortunately, gets embarrassed in front of the whole town when her oldest sister and mom sign her up for like a, what do they call those? Those like dating auction thingies. And then on the opposite side, we have Truman, who lives in New Orleans and just recently found out that his boyfriend of about a year actually is married and has a child. That's not great either. Both of them complain to a mutual friend, Ramona, and Ramona offers the idea that they should switch places. This allows Greta to get away from her family, Truman to get out of the city. Then that way, each of them has someone to take care of the thing they are concerned about. In Greta's case, it is her 20 million plants. In Truman's case, it is his dog, what was his name? Because it was something weird. Horse. His dog is named Horse. I think he's a Great Dane, so like, I guess that kind of makes sense. I've read a single chapter of them having switched places. Truman ends up going to a florist shop near Greta's house to make sure he didn't kill one of her plants, and meets this cute owner of the shop who also is apparently really good friends with Greta. Truman comments that he has never had anybody give him flowers, and so Ash gives him a rose, which was just really cute and very, very adorable. It seems like it's gonna be a pretty light, easy read. I'm wondering if it's this long just because there's 2 full-out romance stories going on at the same time within the book. Hopefully that's it, and it's not just like really dragged out, because I've learned about myself that I don't do slow burns super well. Chances are I will probably be picking this up tonight. I don't know if I'm gonna do that right now, because like I said, I'm just so wiped. I'm a little concerned that if I try and read, I'll pass out. Rather, I think I might toss together some dinner out of the 20 million things of leftovers I have, and possibly finish out watching Clueless, which I started yesterday. Hey y'all, happy Saturday. Honestly, I look like a hot mess. This lighting is terrible. My contact is all messed up, but you know, I needed to film this update. I completely forgot filming an update yesterday. Josh came over and the both of us ended up going to do this little free library hunt for a different video, which I have coming out here soon. I actually had a pretty good haul, and then I ended up taking him to this Mexican restaurant, which I've been wanting to show him, which was delicious. But between all of that, I just didn't even think to film an update. By the time we got back here, I was completely wiped, like took a shower and just was ready for bed. Basically, we've once again had a very lazy day, thankfully. Josh had to drop his car off to get some work done on it, and then we went over to his house, pretty much just watched a bunch of The Great North before taking a nap. But I have many things to update y'all in regard to reading, because I finished out Divine Rivals yesterday, and oh my god, this was so good. I get it. I understand why everybody has been talking about this. I understand why everybody has loved it. It was so good. Did not expect what was going to happen with the romance to completely just take over my enjoyment of everything else in the book. But then like at the very end, there's a reveal of some events that are going to take place in the next one, which are going to focus much more on the world building, on the War of the Gods and that sort of stuff, which I'm very excited for, because again, I really liked the world building. I was very intrigued by it. This was fantastic. I am so glad I read this. I mean, just look at all the tabs. I loved it a lot. Now I have joined the leagues of everybody else who is going to be singing this book's praises, and very excited for the next one. I also, though, have gotten a lot farther into The Holiday Trap. I listened to the audiobook of this yesterday while I was walking Faith. I listened to a little bit of it while I was like driving to and from work, and then whenever I drove to drop Josh off, coming back home today. So I've probably read like about 200 pages in the last day. I think I'm enjoying this. It's just very middle of the road, unfortunately. The problem with having two romance stories taking place is there's the opportunity for you to feel a lot stronger about one, and I do. I much prefer the male-male romance in this with Truman and Ash. I also have to say, like, all of the names of characters in this book are just sort of out there. Okay, they're not like super weird or anything, they're just a little unusual. So we have Greta and Truman. Greta's love interest is Caris, spelled C-A-R-Y-S, which is not how I would think to spell it. Truman's love interest is Ashley, who is A-S-H-L-E-I-G-H. I thought the L-E-I-G-H thing was pretty much only specified for, you know, like white sorority girl names. Anyway, I like Truman's romance with Ashley. I think they're very cute, and I think it's because it's a lot slower burn in comparison to Greta and Caris's, where they had sex like within the first 150 pages. We've had another spicy scene for them. We've also, by this point, had a spicy scene for Truman and Ashley. Across the board, I will say, like, heat level in this book, pretty solid. I'm enjoying it. Even now, I just like don't feel that strongly about Greta and Caris's, because it seems like it was all insta-lust based. And even now, they really haven't talked at all about what sort of label they should have. And given how much time they've spent together, I feel like that should be a necessary discussion at this point. Greta is still struggling with her weird relationship she has with her family. Unfortunately, Greta has never really had her own identity. Her identity has always been tied to her family, and now that she's finally having that, she's so thrilled by it. She's filled with so much happiness. Even though she's aware of it, she's still terrified of taking the jump to officially say, yeah, I would want to stay here, because she's fearful of the impact that'll have on her relationship with her family. I don't know, it kind of just seems like her whole family needs to check out some familial therapy. Caris is like a manic pixie dream girl who, it seems for the most part, has everything in her life figured out. I have a hard time believing that Caris can afford to live in New Orleans as well as get a PhD while performing math tricks at a square and then also doing ghost tours. That just seems a little unlikely in my opinion. I think the atmosphere element in the story is really strong in both regards, whether we're in Maine or New Orleans. The author has definitely brought that all to life. It's frustrating because I'm so much more invested in Truman and Ashley's romance, so anytime I'm following Greta and Caris, it's kind of just like, okay, yeah, this is happening. Cool, like another part of New Orleans, that's really great, but Can we get back to Truman and Ash now? I suppose I like that Greta is kind of figuring out her own identity now. She loves plants. She has found this like gardening group that is all nonprofit based. She also has made friends with Karis's roommates and has kind of come up with ideas for their business. Truman, apart from his romance with Ashley, is purely dedicated to trying and help Ashley make his business work, trying to figure out new ideas to get people in the door, trying to bring more revenue in. And honestly, like that, I'm all over that. That aspect right there, so Hallmark movie. What's really surprising also is I still have like a whole nother 100 pages of this book left. And I feel like in both romances, we're gearing up for the third act conflict. And God, I really don't want to have to deal with 2 of those. Anyway, so that's it for reading updates. I'm gonna have an actual video coming out for my little free library bits, but here's the books I hauled if you're intrigued. I also got rid of 7 or 8, so that's great. That's books off my shelves. This is really the one I'm happiest about because it's one of those epic tales editions, and my light doesn't work well for this, but it's the Greek Myths and Tales one, which I've been wanting to buy. Now that I'm home, I am probably gonna start on chores because I just finished doing the dishes. I'm gonna need to do some laundry this weekend, and then I think I might just throw together some leftovers for dinner. I started watching a new anime though. It was called Millionaire Detective Balance Unlimited. Hey beautiful people, it is Sunday and I'm actually done up for once because I just finished doing some filming. I am gonna be as productive as possible today. I'm already doing some laundry. I did my meal planning for the week. I already laid out like my to-do lists for every day. I gotta change my sheets. I need to organize the Keurig cup container. Wow, good words, Nat. I gotta clean Sam's box. I gotta water the plants. Like I have a list that I'm gonna be working on. Before I start into all of those sort of things, I did want to give you guys a final update for reading things. So I actually ended up finishing The Holiday Trap last night. I went ahead and did a call pile breakdown and it did sort of come out to exactly what I was anticipating. I think my biggest thing with this is, again, the author sort of shot themselves in the foot by having 2 separate romance stories going because you're gonna like one more than the other, and I definitely preferred Truman and Ash's. Very, very sweet. I really enjoyed the romance between them. Just the way they talked about each other, how they were so vulnerable with one another. Thankfully, the third act conflict did not get drawn out in either romance. In Truman's and Ash's, it was a little bit longer than Karis and Greta's. However, like, I totally understood why that was an issue and why Ash was concerned. Like, it made perfect sense with the sort of setup this book had. And thankfully, they ended up talking things out pretty, like, within a day, so it wasn't too bad. Greta and Karis's, by the end, I was most happy for Greta in the fact that she was able to create her own identity separate from her family. She officially, unsurprisingly, decides to move to New Orleans. She finds a new life for herself. She has a hobby, she has multiple jobs she really enjoys, she's created a whole friend group on top of her relationship with Karis. I was more just happy for her and how her life had changed, not really because of the romance. I mean, I was happy for Truman and how his life had changed too, but like a lot of it was more focused on the romance, which makes sense because this is a romance book. But Karis and Greta, not so much. The third act conflict with them, I don't really want to call it a conflict because it's more like they just had, not an argument, but Karis had to explain a boundary for herself, and Greta wasn't intentionally pushing said boundary, but she had been. And even with that, it doesn't feel like an argument. It just feels like they needed to clear the air so that each person could understand where the other was coming from and know for future reference. That one was just really weird and sort of furthered my whole thing with the real focus in Greta's story doesn't seem like it's the romance, because everything else with her story is just so much more focused on her life in New Orleans. Because really, in her timeline, the bigger drama at the end was confronting her family about the issues she has and how unhappy she's been living in Maine, and her desire to move on and go to New Orleans, create a new life for herself. Greta's ending didn't really feel like the ending of a romance book. It felt like the ending of a contemporary story. And there was just way too many side plots going on. So in the end, this was cute. I just feel like Greta's and
Karis's romance really needed to be amped up a bit more, and there should have been less focus on all of the side plots happening in Greta's storyline. All right, so I finished that book, and it's a vlog, so even though I'm ending it today, I feel like I should tell you guys about the next books I'm gonna be picking up. First, I am working on the Broke Bitches bingo board, and one of the prompts I need to do for a bingo is a color wheel. I've made a rule for myself that I'm trying to focus on my own TBR when it comes to that bingo board. So I spun a color wheel and I came up with purple, which the only purple book I have is Ink Blood Sister Scribe by Emma Torres. This is a standalone. Honestly, the main bit that got me on board was two estranged half-sisters tasked with guarding their family's library of magical books. I am intrigued. Unfortunately, I just recently heard from Nina at Books with Neen that she did not like this at all, which makes me nervous. I got the audiobook for it from Scribd, so I might start into this today while I am working on all my chores. So yeah, that's it for reading updates. Like I said, I have a ton of stuff I'm gonna get done today, so I'm gonna film it with y'all because I feel like that'll keep me accountable.